Great, welcome to the 2022 AEAUT conference. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's another things. So we're excited to have everybody here. We're going to do this conference a little differently than we've done conferences in the past. My name is Joshua Bell. I'm the president-elect of the association. So part of my role is to oversee the conference planning committee. And so what we did is we took feedback from a lot of the different programs, and from the conferences, one of the things that the programs really wanted was an opportunity to work together, specifically within their content areas, and to be able to network. So we've taken that design and we've worked with a few partners in the Utah State Board of Education, and hopefully at the conclusion of today's conference, we'll have some deliverables. And some of those deliverables are ways that you're going to be able to package content in a way that's applicable to the resources that we have available in adult education. In adult education throughout the state, there's a lot of programs that have to operate with a fraction of the WPU that is available to K-12 students. I believe on average, you have about $5,000 or so per student in terms of WPU and K-12. In adult education, that drops to about $860. And I'm telling you this as if you don't know that, right? So we have to do more with less, and we do a great job. This conference is really designed to help us do it even better. So hopefully by the end of this conference, you'll have ways to integrate interdisciplinary topics, looking at standards, networking with colleagues, and hopefully having some people that you can work with moving forward in the future. So our first order of business is to introduce to you the current president of AEAUT, Nikki Wade.
Thank you, Josh. I just want to take a moment to welcome you to the conference, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your hard work, and the work that you do is important, and I applaud you for the work that you do with our students. So I just want to tell you a really quick story. When I was in college, I decided to take an acting class. And I was given an improvisation prompt, and this was my scenario. I had discovered that my lover had been unfaithful to me, and I was, is this okay for adult education? And, well, I was, just FYI, it was a school to the south. Anyway, about an hour away. Anyway, I was sneaking into his room and I was retrieving the love letters that I had sent him because I was angry. And so when I did my scene, my acting teacher gave me some feedback. Has anybody heard that word? Feedback. But actually, he gave me this incredible feedback. He said, you just played that scene kind of with one note. You were just kind of angry. Can you do the scene again, but be in the moment and let yourself discover what other emotions, what other possibilities there might be? And I redid the scene, and it felt completely different. Did I become a world-famous actress? No. But that feedback was super helpful, and it taught me a lesson about being present. And so I would just like to invite all of us to be present together today as we are exposed to the ideas that the presenters are going to share with us. And then when we're in groups with our colleagues, that we can really be present with each other and be free to let our minds and the experience take us to new places. Okay, so that was my story. Okay, so I would like to now thank our awesome sponsors of our conference for helping us make this conference possible. And so we'd like to thank Essential Education, GED Testing Service, Atomic Jolt, TABE, Scanning Pens, Burlington English, TP, and Reading Horizons. Can we get a thank you to our... Okay, it is now my pleasure to introduce Stephanie Patton, the Director of Adult Education in the state of Utah, for the Program of the Year Award. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good morning. So happy to be with you guys today. So last year, if you remember, we started awarding the Program of the Year. And, you know, I was a little bit scared and worried that we just end up awarding the same program every year or something, you know. But thankfully, that's not the case. We have a new one today. So when we're looking for which program is going to be the Program of the Year, there's a rubric, because we're teachers, right? So there's a rubric. And it's based on things like how the percentage of post-testing, the percentage of level gains, do they have carryover, are they spending their money wisely, when we go out on on-site monitorings, are they getting big findings, or is everything pretty much okay? And so like the rubric covers all of that, and that's important. But if you remember, we've been talking for a while about making it personal, right? And making sure that we're serving the students in a very individual way. And what I want to tell you is that this program also does that really, really well, right? I've talked to some of their students, and their students are so thankful to be a part of this program, to have the opportunity to have learned and grown with the program, because from the moment they walked into the program, they felt welcomed and accepted and at home, right? And so they had an environment where they could grow and progress. So I am so excited to award, my shirt tells it all, to award Weaver Adult Education with the Program of the Year for 2022. This big, huge banner. So that they can put it up on their building somewhere and let everybody know that this is the place to be. And we also have an award.
Congratulations, Weaver. They're a great example of what makes adult education great in the state of Utah. We have some other awards that we'd like to pass out as part of our program for today. The first award that we recognize, we go through a list of several different awards, Community Partner, Legislative Award, Educator of the Year, Leader of the Year, Award of Merit, and then we recognize Learners of the Year. So we're going to start with the Community Partner of the Year. And what I'll do is I'll announce the winner and have them come up, and as the winner comes up, I'll read their nomination. So our Community Partner of the Year is Deputy Duncan Wright. Deputy Duncan Wright is head of programs at the Cache County Jail. He is the direct contact for all operations for correctional education at the jail. He is diligent and organized in the multiple facets that are involved in managing the involvement of adult education in the jail. He always keeps Cash Adult Ed informed and is willing to help address anything that comes up. He has an amazing ability to connect with the inmates while also upholding healthy boundaries. His collaboration has been pivotal in the success of the program at large, and the students feel supported by Deputy Wright in their educational pursuits. He serves as a great example to the students of how it looks to live a life with integrity. Thank you for your work with adult education, Deputy Duncan Wright. Our next award recipient is for the Legislator of the Year. This year, the work for those of you who worked with Governor Spencer Cox, he's really targeted, even as a Lieutenant Governor, the ambitious goal of trying to break the cycle of intergenerational poverty. And Spencer Cox recognizes that that work is largely done in the space that we occupy. A lot of the students that we have don't have the skills, or they lack the basic credentials to be able to access opportunities. And I think that why Governor Cox was recognized for this award is he understands that, and he understands the importance of what we do. And we're not just providing students with education, but we're providing them with opportunities and access to a future. So I would like to, we have a video to show of the Legislator of the Year, and then we'll introduce Brittany Cummins, the advisor to the governor, to receive the award.
Good morning. Helping Utahns most at risk and in greatest need is one of my most important responsibilities as a state leader. So receiving recognition from an organization that works across the state every day, changing the lives of so many people, is special for me, my staff, and my family. In their leadership roles, Joshua Bell and Nikki Wade have positioned the Adult Education Association of Utah to serve as a model of innovation and coordination with WIOA's required partners. This conference is an example of what makes Utah great. The work you all will engage in over the next 2 days, aligning academic standards, educational best practices, the Utah State Board of Education's strategic goals, and Utah legislative priorities, gives me hope in achieving my administration's ambitious goal of breaking the cycle of intergenerational poverty. I look forward to continuing to partner with the Adult Education Association of Utah, and am eager to support you in your efforts to help Utah's hardest to serve. On behalf of all of Utah, thank you.
Great. Please welcome to the stage to receive this award on behalf of Governor Cox, his education advisor, Brittany Cummins.
Thank you very much. It is such an honor to be here to receive this award on behalf of Governor Cox. And I want to extend his gratitude, as you've just seen, for your work. I often hear Governor Cox, he said specifically to me and to many around the state, of how important your work is, how important the connections that you make with our learners and our students across the state, because those connections that you make with those students provide opportunities for them to access the training that they need to provide for their families as they engage with the economy, engage with extended training. So thank you for your work. I applaud the time that you spend. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Our next award is going to be presented to, as soon as we get our AD set up there, our Educator of the Year. So, I'd like to welcome to the stage, please, Lindsay Kelty. Lindsay is an elementary teacher with a background in linguistics. She has served as a teacher leader and helped spearhead the integration of instruction of a variety of new student arrivals. Lindsay played a role in resolving the humanitarian crisis associated with the Afghan arrivals locating Salt Lake City. Her kindness, knowledge created an environment engineered to help meet students' extraordinary academic, social, and cultural needs. She has an outstanding work ethic and works hard to reach her goals. She is very enthusiastic, a self-motivator, and helps her students believe in themselves. Lindsay is now working as a teacher, community liaison, data administrator, and program manager for Ogden School District's new adult education program. Countless families and communities have been served as a result of her efforts. Adult education in Utah is better because of Lindsay. Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay. Very good. All right, our next award is identifying our Leader of the Year. So, like the Program of the Year, there has to be a leader involved there, and that leader who's done a wonderful job in ushering in a new era in Weber education and being an example for all of Utah, Andrea Woodring. Andrea is an outstanding leader who serves as the principal at Weber Adult Education. She has led our school for the past 2 years and has done an amazing job growing our enrollment to over 700 students and increasing the staff to accommodate all the district's teaching classes we offer students. She has found multiple locations with community partners as well as grants to help accommodate all our students. Andrea is a true champion for our students and their families. Their success in adult education is her North Star and guides everything she does, and it shows. Our students are thriving and flourishing. She has a vision for the program and knows how to make that vision become a reality. We graduated our largest class ever this past year. Our students put in a lot of time and effort in their education and graduated with high percentages of level and skill gains. Our data tells our story. Andrea is driving force behind all of this. She relentlessly advocates for her students and her team. Andrea exemplifies leading by example. Andrea is best in class, hands down, a great leader and a compassionate heart and personal drive and integrity to keep pushing the success for every student who walks through their doors. Andrea Woodring. Thank you. Our next award is our Award of Merit. The Award of Merit goes to Mary Howson. Mary started her career in Connecticut, where she was originally trained through Laubach Literacy. She traveled all over the United States, facilitating training workshops. After one of Mary's training sessions, a young Laotian man and his brother came to their house for supper and stayed for 7 years. They helped the boys get into high school and sponsored them fully as they developed skills to become the responsible American citizens they are. Upon discovery that the boys' mom and sisters were stuck in a refugee camp in Thailand, Mary and her husband Don jumped through many hoops to help them get to the United States, where they stayed with them for a year before becoming independent. Mary and Don founded the Literacy Volunteers of America in Connecticut, where they helped refugees get their lives started in the United States. When her husband Don was transferred to Utah in the 1980s, she didn't let the move stop her from continuing to be involved in literacy education and supporting new Americans. In 1988, she founded Literacy Volunteers of America, Wasatch Front, to support literacy learners across the Salt Lake County. The name was changed to the English Skills Learning Center in 2003 to better reflect the organization's purpose. Mary started the program out of her personal home using the basement and patio as classroom space. She often worked 18-hour days, and the organization had no paid staff for 5 years. In addition to her work training community members to become tutors, she also recruited people to sponsor refugee families during the resettlement process. Adult education and all refugees who entered Utah are better because of her. Thank you, Mary.
tiny portion of the stories that you can find about how Mary has like touched people's lives. Like, what an incredible woman. Like, you have no idea all of the great things that she has done for learners and refugees and children and just everyone. So really an honor that you would be here today.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. It was 50 years of great fun. I've never enjoyed my life better than working with refugees from all over the world. I've been a very lucky woman to have lived like I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Our next award recipient is for Learner of the Year, Bailey Magalago. Bailey decided at the age of 30 to finish her diploma regardless of the obstacles. She has been working diligently for the past 2 years to complete her high school diploma. She is a great student, putting forth consistent effort to complete packets and attending regularly for the past 2 years. She has a lot of life events to work through, like getting remarried and still juggling work, family, and school. Anyone who has balanced school, work, and family knows this is a challenge. This year, she graduated with her high school diploma and has so much to be proud of. Congratulations, Bailey.
Hey, I'm Bailey. I want to express my gratitude to the adult ed program. I was supposed to graduate high school in 2009, and I'm 31 years old with 8 children. I've been through a divorce. I've gotten remarried. So I've had a lot of life events take place since I was supposed to graduate. I run a business, and so being able to graduate after so many years was hard. There were many times I wanted to quit. I've actually tried 2 other times, in 2016 and 2018, to graduate through adult ed. Both times I failed. I quit going. And so I'm not sure what made it different this time around, besides having a support system, being older, being more wise, and just finding the motivation to go. Like, I want to be a social worker, and with that I needed to graduate. I could have had my GED. However, I was set out to get my diploma, and I needed to prove to myself that I could do that. I needed to prove to my children that I could do that. Like, we get to do hard things in life, and we get to push through all of the obstacles that are thrown at us. And I get the privilege of teaching them that, and hopefully other people get to see me do hard things and find their motivation. My commitment to myself with going back to school was I had to show up to the school every single day. It did not matter for how long. Some days was an hour, some days 4 hours, whatever I could do, but I had to be there every single day. And that's what I did. I started with a total of 25 packets, and I finished in August of 2022, and I got my diploma. I'm so excited to be able to move forward in my career. I cannot thank the staff enough. Every one of you that work there. Showing up to work, to do whatever it is that you do, that plays a part in having the school be successful, and wanting people to show up to finish their schoolwork. The love, the compassion that is shown there daily is so priceless, and I'm so thankful that I got to go there. I was very sad when I graduated because I don't get to see everyone every single day now. But I know that they will continue supporting me if I ever needed them. And I'm grateful for the friendships that I have now made. And, everyone's still checking on me. It's such a warm feeling, and it makes me feel very loved. And I really, really appreciate that. Yes, I had a lot of obstacles. I wanted to quit. It was hard. But it was not an option to not finish, And so I'm very, very thankful that people kept pushing me and holding me accountable to something that I set out to do. And I just want everyone to know that I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bailey. Wonderful message. So you've motivated me for being here and all of us. So thank you so much. It helps to hear that message from the students. Our next student is not here yet. It's running a few minutes late, so we're going to try to move ahead and then go back, which I'm sure will mess up the entire conference, but we'll see if that works. Jorge, our next learner of the year, Jorge Altuve. Jorge had almost perfect attendance last semester in his level 2 class and spoke English at every single opportunity. He had a phenomenal work ethic, asking questions and participating always. He willingly helped other students and was a great example of a hard worker. He was well respected among all students and was truly eager and motivated to learn English. He made monumental progress from the beginning of the semester until the end through sheer effort. Congratulations, Jorge.
Hello people, how are you everyone? My name is Jorge Joseph from Venezuela. I live in the USA and 19 months. I like USA. I love Utah. It's perfect for me. Today, I am happy. Every day happy. I am happy every day. Thank you so much by the opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure for me to be a part of the project. This project is very important for me. Learn English every day. You are the best. The good teacher. I love teacher. The best. And it's very important for me in my life is learn English every day. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I wish learn English. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Program Education Adolescent, for the opportunity. I need English. I want English. And thank you the opportunity. Oh my God. I love the program. I love everyone. God is grade. I'm sorry. so much for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. You're doing very well. Our next learner of the year is Amal Cleto. Amal came to the United States and was placed in the Granite Peaks beginning level ESL classes in 2016. She did not speak English and did not have the benefit of getting educated past the age of 10 in her native Sudan. Since arriving here, I think she has taken classes in every single ESL level offered through Granite Peaks. She has now moved into our GED program. She started in the fundamentals class, where she really struggled to learn through math to move up to the next level. She had to repeat the class several times before she could advance to the next level, but she persisted. Amal works hard and attends every day and studies with a tutor after school. She works at a care facility as a CNA. She is a mother of 5 children, juggling the demands of motherhood, work, and school. Her dream is to pass the GED and to go to nursing school. It has not been easy, but she never gives up and always keeps a positive attitude. Congratulations, Amal. Congratulations.
Hi everybody. I'm kind of sad. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you guys. I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Amal Cleto. I'm from Sudan. I came to Utah on December 20, 2016. I was 10 or 11 when I went to school. I studied for 2 or 3 years. I went to Egypt in 2001 and I got married in 2003. And my first daughter was born in 2004. I didn't start to learning English until I was 29 years and I had 3 kids. I learned little English in Egypt. When I came to America, I started gaining ESL classes at Granite Peaks. I started level 1 and I went to level 4. Then I went to Immenteria Center. At night, I went to Sandy and I got to level 6 there. After that, I didn't study because of virus COVID-19. And then I came back to school and I started the GED program at Granite Peaks. I learned learning in English is very hard, but I have tried to learning what my children were learning at their school. It is hard for me to go to class and study because I also have to work full time and to be mom to my 5 children. I am going to study hard to get my GED. Then I want to go to college and I learning everything I need to go to a nurse school. Thank you.
Keep up the great work. All very inspiring stories. Hopefully that's the shot in the arm that you need to know that what you do every single day matters. We'll take an opportunity. I'll read our final learner of the year. Goy McConan is not here yet to receive the award. Apparently she's running a little late. So when she gets here, we'll give her a standing ovation, make her feel super welcome. But I'll read the paragraph of her nomination, have Jessica Hercules come up and receive it on her behalf. So Goy has been in the DI English program for a few years, but she made significant progress in the last year. She gained 3 levels on the BEST, 2 on the CASAS, and 4 on the ERL. I didn't even know we had that test. That's another one. ERLE. What is it? Okay. Oh, is that okay? Yeah, thank you. All right, yeah. This is another acronym. You can say anything, right? So she has been able to start incorporating more complex English grammar structures into her everyday use, such as knowing when and how to use the simple past tense. Her numeracy skills have also increased, enabling her to refer to dates confidently in her writing and speaking. Most importantly, Goy is a humble yet attentive learner. She is continually expressing gratitude and excitement about learning. She recognizes her struggles, but also believes in her abilities and is motivated to reach her language goals. So when Goy does come, we'll make sure to make a really big deal out of it. Does that sound good to everybody? Good. All right, so at this point in the presentation, we've gone through our awards every single year, so you'll get a notice at your programs in August, September. Once we get the program going, this conference happens to fall late September, early October every year. So pay attention to those notices they come out. I know we get busy, but there's a conference committee that reads through all of these. So I encourage you, if you have learners, if you have educators, if there's people in your communities or legislators or people who help your program and you want them recognized, this is a great opportunity to do that. Our next part of the presentation is to turn the time over to Stephanie Patton to give you an update on all things adult education Utah.
So give me a second. Give me a second. First of all, let me start by saying how privileged I feel to be in front of you guys. I'm going to try not to get emotional, but back when I was young, I never got emotional, but now I'm getting old and get emotional. But you guys are all awesome. The work that you do is incredible, and I know the last couple of years have been killer hard, and yet you've done amazing things, and you've touched many students' lives, each one of you. And I think the few that we talked about today are just, the tip of the iceberg, right, of the change that you're making in significant ways. And I appreciate your efforts. And so I just want to take a minute. Well, right now, you guys probably don't know this, but right now it's reporting time for federal reports. And so I've spent some time in the data, Adam and I, the last little bit looking at the numbers and preparing them to go to the federal government. And so I want to celebrate all of the work that we've done collectively. We've talked a lot about the individual successes, but collectively we've also had success that I want to celebrate. So first of all, we serve, Goy's here. And I should say too, before we go too deep into this, award winners and their families, and you don't have to stay to listen to the rest of it. You're welcome to leave, and don't feel bad. You don't have to listen. You're welcome to stay all day if you want, but you certainly don't have to. So thank you again for your part in being here and letting us celebrate you and your successes. All right. Again, final round. Okay, so now you may have taken a minute to look at these numbers, but what I want to say is that this last year we've served more students in adult education than the last two previously. And so if you feel tired and worn out, there's a reason, right? So congratulations to each of you. A big round of applause for everyone in the room. And you can see more diplomas. And when I say diplomas, that means GEDs and diplomas, right? So more diplomas as well. So it's been a good year that way. Last year at this conference, I stood in front of you and I talked about raising our size higher, right, beyond the 48-hour benchmark to 100 hours, right? And because, and not just that we're choosing 100 hours out of thin air, and we just thought that was a magic number. No, because research shows that at 100 hours, something significant is happening in adult education students' lives, right? They start to see level gains and they start to see economic impact in their lives. And this is like where the good stuff really starts to happen. So the good news is that we've increased the number of hours per student in adult education. It's been a steady increase over the last couple of years, but a significant increase in the last year. And so thank you again. This speaks to creating engaging content and building relationships and keeping students in the program for long enough to start to see those incredible results that come at 100 hours. And we want to continue to raise those numbers, right? We're getting really close, but it's certainly not there yet. We still have room to go, room to move. Additionally, similarly, I guess, in 2020-21, only 15% of our students were staying for 100 hours. And you can see now, we've moved that up to almost 19%. So incremental increases, but that again points to the work that you guys are doing, right? To keep students in the program for long enough to see significant impacts in their lives. And we want to keep raising that percentage. We're not there yet. We want that a lot higher. So we've been talking about making it personal for a while now, right? Because the idea in making it personal is that we're gonna individualize our instruction, and it's really surrounding that, like keeping the students in the program and making sure that they're getting the quality instruction that they really need. And so when we're talking about making it personal, we want to increase personal contact, right? The more that we increase personal contact and build meaningful relationships, the more likely that students are to stay. It creates motivation and persistence. When we're talking about increasing personal feedback, we're talking about, like Nikki, her example, right, that she shared this morning. And that's feedback that she received years ago that she still remembers because it was meaningful and it was personalized and it made an impact on her. When we give personal feedback, we can impact students' lives. We can increase the acceleration of their learning and really start to get quality instruction. And when we set personalized expectations, then students have a goal and a meaningful goal that they're deciding that's motivating them to move forward, and they can see the relevance of the instruction that we're giving them, right? And it starts to become personal to them. And why am I here? Like, I know why I'm here. I know where I'm going. These are all important aspects of making our instruction better and moving forward. We really want to create a personalized approach that helps them to fully maximize the success that they have while they're with us. We have to make their experience personal. And your efforts are making a difference, right? So can I have 11 volunteers just come stand in a row up here? I just need 11. It's not scary, I just need you as a visual. So I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, wait, let's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. One more. 11. We got it. Okay, so if you were here last year, you may remember that I had 11 people stand in front of you last year. And anybody remember how many had to sit down? 5. 5 sat down last year. 5 sat down last year because that's how many left before 12 hours of instruction. So I'm super excited to tell you what the number is this year. Anyone want to guess? 3, that's right. So 3 of you, will you 3 of you sit down? Maybe these 3 right here. So 3, only 3, right? So like, again, that's not perfect, but that's a significant increase, right? It's, if you do the percentages, it's just a little bit over 3, but we can't like cut Doris in half or something. So, so we're saying 3. But that's a significant increase, right? When we focus on making it personal, we make a difference. Students stay longer, the numbers say, right? We can keep doing this. We can make it even better. We can keep it so that 10 out of 11 or 11 out of 11 are staying with us longer. You guys can sit back down. Thank you. So again, congratulations. It was very fun to look at the numbers this year because almost all of them went up. Like, good job, hard work. This is hard work. And it's a really difficult time to be doing this hard work. And you guys have done better and better. And I'm so excited for that. And I'm excited to see what more can be done this next year. So here's a little, if you were of those 3 that left that left before 12 hours, if you were to guess what age group the majority of those students were, which age group would you think? Matt's waving his arm, and so I'm just curious what he's saying.
It's my 16 to 20. My parents are grabbing that idea.
Do all of you kind of agree with that, 16 to 20-year-olds? Well, you're wrong. Sorry, you're wrong. That's not what the numbers say. The numbers say actually that 25 to 44-year-olds are still 45% of the students who left, those 3 that left, 45% of them are 25 to 44. So I anticipated that you would say 16 to 18-year-olds because that's what I was going to say until I looked at the numbers. And that's why this number stood out, because I was like, oh, that's not what I thought it would be. So when you're designing your program, when you're creating structures, 16 to 18-year-olds are certainly leaving. We know that, right? But this population, this demographic is actually leaving more. And so really like paying attention to like, what do you think some of the barriers are that the 25 to 44-year-olds would have?
Childcare.
Childcare, absolutely. What else might be a barrier for them staying? Work, absolutely. Some of the others? Caring for any, right? Like caretaking in general, maybe parents, maybe children. Yeah. Right. Yes, transportation of whatever kind, right? Absolutely. Yeah. So there's complex barriers that the 25 to 44-year-olds face that our 16 to 18-year-olds might not face to the same extent, right? And so we really need to be cognizant of those when we're thinking about how we keep our students staying in the program. Again, we've been talking about making it personal, and I just want to get personal with you for a minute. And this might be where I get emotional. A long time ago, I used to be at the program level. Feels like a long, long time now. Anyway, a long time ago, I used to be at the program level, and hard to think of it, but like I actually started in adult education as an aide, so kind of weird that now I'm standing in front of you as the director, but anyway, started in adult education as an aide. So my first year in adult, and by the way, I had no idea that adult education even existed until someone offered me the job as an aide. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool, sure, why not, I'll do that. So, so I was an aide, and I come from not originally, but I was working in Duchesne County School District, and pretty rural, right? And adult education had been in the thriving metropolis of Duchesne, in Roosevelt originally, but they had moved it out 7 miles outside of Roosevelt. Now, Roosevelt's not really that large of a city if you've ever been there, but it was 7 miles outside of Roosevelt, next to their alternative school. And so no transportation options to get there. It was in a little portable next to this one little alternative school building. And we just had like very few people who showed up to that program. It was just too much of a barrier, right? The location was too much of a barrier. So, but one individual, a young man, came almost on a daily basis. His girlfriend was pregnant, and his girlfriend's parents had provided, room and board for them to help him progress to get his high school diploma before the baby was born. And so he came on a daily basis. So my training as an adult education aide consisted of, here's how you log into A+, and here's how you give them an account on A+, and here's how you enroll them in Utopia. So that's all. And by the way, my formal training, I did have a bachelor's degree at that point, but it was in business management finance. So of course I had lots of training on how to be a teacher. Anyway, I had some experience, like religious experiences teaching, formal and non-formal. That's the sum total of my teaching experience at that point, right? So this individual comes in, and usually it's just me and him in the portable, right? Like nobody else is coming. Every now and then somebody would come and inquire, but I put him on A+. That's all I need to do. Put him on A+. He'd sit there and he'd ask a question. I'd come over and help him. If it'd been a while between questions, I'd approach him and say, like, you doing okay? Can I help you? We'd have conversations and got to be pretty good friends because it's just the two of us. And that was that. That was what I did as an aide. And to be frank, I failed him. Like I failed him. He didn't finish his diploma. He made some progress. He earned a couple of credits, but it wasn't super engaging. I didn't know what I was doing, and that's a poor excuse, but I didn't, and he didn't succeed, and that haunts me. He needed more than what I could give him. A couple years later, we moved the program, so it was in the thriving metropolis of Roosevelt. It was much more accessible, and we started to see more people come in, right? Because there's a lot of people who needed our services. It was just too far. It's too much of a barrier. And one day I had a young mother come in. She had some cognitive disabilities and had been abused in her prior relationships. And actually, when she was pregnant with her son, she'd been kicked in the stomach and by her partner, and the baby had been severely damaged by that and had been disabled for several years. His whole life he was disabled. He had just passed away at 12 years old. And so she had spent her life, the past 12 years caretaking for this son, and that was her life, right? Taking care of the son. So when her son passed away, her friend said, you never got your diploma, and you need something to fill that void that your son took. And build your confidence. Why don't you go to adult education and get your diploma? And so she came, and by now I was director now. I had a little bit more knowledge of what was going on. Certainly not enough. So she came, and I sat down with her every time she came, and I walked her through the curriculum, and I tried to help her the best I could. But but I still didn't have the skills she needed. And you know, she did complete her diploma just through her own sheer grit and my commitment to help her as good as I could. But it certainly wasn't enough. And when she left, this isn't my comfort toy, I promise. When she left, she gave me this toy that was her son's favorite toy, as a token of her gratitude to me. And instead of giving me comfort, it actually does the opposite, because I know she deserves so much more. And I'm grateful to have been a part of her life, but I wish that I could have given her more. So this really is my passion. All of our students deserve the very best that we have to give them. And if there's some way that we can increase the quality of instruction that we give them, we owe it to them to do that. To engage them more effectively than we have in the past. So I had the privilege of attending COAID this past spring. And listening to some of the presenters who actually are from Washington State, right? And Washington State has been a leader in adult education. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of the national perspective on adult education, but they're a leader, and they've been a leader in adult education for several years, and they've done some very innovative things, right? One of the presenters was talking about the process that happens when a student comes into their program. So when a student comes into their program, they go through an extensive interview with the students, and they talk to them about their life experiences, and they try and dig in and see in their life experiences what has happened, that they can pull those, what experiences have they had that they can pull out and align with the standards and the requirements for a high school diploma, and help them through their past experiences actually gain credit towards a high school diploma. And this really resonated with me. So, you know, like I got my master's degree in school counseling, and so I have that mindset. And just the opportunity, right, to listen to students' experiences, because certainly by the time they come to us, they've had some, right? And to honor those experiences in a way, like an informal way, right? Like giving them credit for those is like really, I think, innovative and transformative, and really helps to like motivate them, right? Like we get to honor them. So you know, there's like the other piece of like, it's not just like, well, you tell me that you used to own a business, and so then I just give you a credit, but like helping them find the academic language and in a formal way presenting, like whether it's through a project or an essay or a presentation, but helping them to formalize those experiences in an academic way to express what they've been able to learn already in their lifetime is really, I think it's really an innovative opportunity. And that's part of like what kind of spurred the idea for this conference, right? So they call it a prior learning assessment, but every student who walks in their door, they go through this prior learning assessment process to identify what they've already done in their lives that can be given credit for, right? So it helped me to like rethink and open my mind to all the different possibilities that might be out there, ways that we can serve our students in a more effective way, motivating and accelerating their progress. So, back. Oh, I didn't even talk about this. And when we're thinking about adult learning theory, right? I don't know how many of you guys know, but adult learning theory says that adults are a little bit different than students when children when they come to us, right? First of all, their motivation for learning is very different. Like they know why they're coming, they have a reason. It's not because they're made to come, right? But when they walk through our doors, there's a reason why they're there and they want to accomplish that. They have all these experiences that they've had that provides them background to pull and to draw from, right? They also have a readiness to learn, but it's really, their readiness to learn again is like related to the purpose of why they're there, and and that's serving as a motivation as well. And they're self-directed, right? We don't have to like, they want to do it on their own. They want to choose their own pathway. They're adults. They're used to like having some autonomy, right? And it has to be relevant. Whatever they're learning has to be relevant to their lives, and not just some abstract theories. So back in the 1970s, J.P. Guilford, a psychologist, he started studying creativity. Like, how do we access creativity? In one of his studies, he challenged participants. I'm sure you guys have all seen this before, maybe not. But in one of those studies, he challenged participants, right, to connect these 9 dots, but using only 4 lines and without lifting your pencil from the paper. So have you guys seen this before? Do you remember how to do it? Well, so what he found though was that very few of his participants looked at the white space surrounding this like imaginary square that the 9 dots create, right? If you're trying to solve the puzzle for the first time, you might try to connect all the dots inside the imaginary square, right? You're kind of tied into that imaginary square. But that's not actually how you solve the puzzle. You have to like look outside of the imaginary square, right? So he was the one who coined the phrase, think outside the box. You guys heard that before? But there's an issue with thinking outside the box. Because if we're thinking outside the box, I mean, it's good to like expand right beyond what we see in front of us and what we're used to and conditioned to, right? See the white space and the other opportunities, that's good. But if we're thinking outside the box, what we're always acknowledging is that there is a box. So today and tomorrow, while we're here, I want you to destroy the box. There is no box. I want you to set aside all your presuppositions and all the things that you've known for your life and to start thinking together in a very collaborative way of how we can rethink and reimagine adult education to serve those students in a way that we haven't served them before, so that we have all of them staying up, right? All 11 staying up and staying with us long enough to see meaningful change in their lives. That's my challenge to you. Now I know it's been, like I said, I know it's been a tough couple of years and I know you're exhausted. So am I. It's been busy and it's been hard, right? So I'm not asking you to do something more. I'm asking you to stop what you're doing and start to think about it in a new way. And now is the right time to do this. You know, the stars are aligned. Policies are open. The State Board of Education are talking, they're starting to talk about new opportunities for diplomas and new ways to do education. Like, now's the time. And we have the opportunity to really do things in a new and innovative way. And that's what this conference is about. And I'm super excited for you guys to talk together, best minds in the state, right, about adult education, and consider a new way to do things that really can engage our students and provide them with high quality education. So that's my challenge for today. What time are we at?
9:17.
Oh, we have so much time. Should we go till 9:30? So we've been sitting here for a little bit now. So let's take a break until 9:30, and then we'll come back just right back here and go to the next part of the morning. Thank you.
As you're returning from break, we thought it would be a great transition to do a quick readiness check. So if you don't already have the conference program that includes a workbook and a pen, now would be the great time to grab those 2 items. Again, you'll need a pen and the conference program that includes a workbook. So as I give you the next prompt on the next slide, Feel free to migrate and grab a pen in the program if you don't have it yet. So with that in mind, as you're settling back in, I'd like to invite you to do some reflecting, some individual reflection, and then we'll do some group sharing. So I'd like for you to think about a significant learning experience that you've had in your life. What did you learn in that experience? What skills did you build? What outcomes might you have achieved? Who was the decision maker in that learning experience? So again, complicated prompt. You've got several questions to reflect upon. This is also a moment for you to grab your pen and the conference program. So take a moment or two to reflect on this, and then share out with your small group table. And we'll come back together in just a few moments.
Thank you, everybody, for taking that moment to look through the program, to kind of activate some prior knowledge there, thinking about one of your learning experiences, and hopefully you talked with your table mates to get us back on the theme of teaching and learning and listening. And I'd like to take a second to introduce myself and the other two presenters that are up here with me. We're going to have the next hour of your attention to talk about some of the shifts that are happening in Utah and personalized competency-based learning. And with that, I'm Michael Hakkarainen. I'm the personalized competency-based learning specialist at the Utah State Board of Education. As my colleague Katie here says, that right there, that's the face of PCBL. Not really. But I do get to manage the grants for the LEAs that are in the PCBL program. I moved to Utah for better skiing, and I stayed for better mountain biking. I'm originally from Maryland. There's my family there. That's my priority, even though my passion is being outside. Are you taking a picture of my slide right now? You don't have permission to do that. But as you're about to find out, I'm also a very big Star Wars fan. I'm a dad, cyclist, climber, busy person. And in my spare time, as I said, I work at the Utah State Board of Education. Next up, I'd like to introduce you to Brittany.
Hi everyone, I am Brittany Griffin. I am in from Atlanta, Georgia today. I work for a national nonprofit called the Learner Centered Collaborative that is partnered with the Utah State Board of Education as it implements personalized competency-based learning throughout the state. So I'm here today as a facilitator, a presenter, but I'm also a mom. I've got my kiddo, Eleanor, who is almost 8. If you remember being 7, birthdays are the biggest deal, so we've been hearing she's almost 8 for about 6 months now. But her birthday is next month, and my dog, Theo, who is my second child. We adore him. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you, working with you throughout the next 2 days to accomplish our conference goals. And with that, I'll turn it over to Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Dewey Hill. I'm the Quality Instruction Coordinator in Teaching and Learning at the State Board of Education. I live here with my husband and Sandy, and we have 2 dogs, Will Rogers and Lady May. And his name is Will Rogers. We hail from Oklahoma, so we had to give him the name of Oklahoma's favorite son. So that's usually like people in Utah are like, who's Will Rogers if they're like under 70 years old? If they are, how many of you knew who Will Rogers was? Thank you. All right, that's good. So he's everywhere, but he's our Westie, and he's very confident, and he's a good diplomat. We say he never met a man he didn't like. So I get to work with professional learning standards. So in working with Stephanie and her team, it's been really fun to talk through adult learning principles, and together I think we're kind of helping the rest of the specialists in our agency to kind of understand and employing good principles and working with adult learners, as far as helping support teachers to become better, but also like employing the same principles whenever you're teaching adults anything, to make sure that it's relevant and all of those principles she shared. And so I get to work a lot with the instructional coaches across the state. And I wonder, in adult ed, do you have instructional coaches that work with you? How many of you have an instructional coach who supports your work? 1 right here, okay. 2, awesome, okay, very good. I think we need to play more, so I'm gonna look into that's good information, and since I had you all here to ask, thank you for sharing that piece. All right, Stephanie, we're gonna work on that too, okay? So, and then I'm excited to work with Michael and with Brittany on personalized competency-based learning, because as we talk through some of the principles of the framework that we have for that, it really translates well into adult learning and how adults learn and what they need to be able to own it, to have it be part of them. You know, that they're getting the diploma is the goal, but we also that's not the end goal for us, is it? It's to get the diploma and be able to know how they can learn so they can continue past that point. And so that's what PCBL can do for us. And so thank you, really excited to be here. I'm gonna hand it back to.
Thank you, Katie and Michael. Let me get my clicker. I'm a wanderer, so I will wander around the stage, make sure it works. Perfect. So I thought it might make sense to continue the conversation that Stephanie started this morning, acknowledging the challenges that we're facing in adult education. And I don't presume to know the challenges that you're facing. So I thought I'd give you a moment to reflect. I'd love for you on page 4 of the workbook. So in your program, if you'll flip to page 4 of the workbook, you'll see the prompt, what is not working for your learners? And just take a moment to reflect, and then I'd love to hear you sharing out at your table. I'm gonna put the mic down and actually walk around the room to try to listen and learn along with you. So we'll come back together in just a few moments. Please again, take a moment to reflect individually first, and then share out at the table. This is one of those moments when I hate to interrupt these robust conversations, but alas, I must. I feel like in a lot of ways we could just spend 2 days talking about the challenges, but instead I hope to inspire you over the next hour with some potential paths forward. But I think it is always important to acknowledge the constraints and barriers that we're facing. So with that, I appreciate you sharing. I learned a lot floating around the room. I heard from lots of different tables, lots and lots of different complex barriers to adult education. I'm going to attempt to summarize some of what I heard, knowing that there's no possible way that I can distill down the complexity into a slide. But I was excited to hear validation. In talking with leaders, with Stephanie, with Josh, with others in adult education, prior to this conference, I'd asked the same question. What are the challenges that adult educators are facing with adult learners? We came up with these 3 categories, and I'm excited to hear, actually, as I walked around, this was very much in line with some of the conversations that I was hearing. We heard that there was a culture of compliance, where for some learners, they're having to check text boxes or check boxes that feel unnecessary because they just have to be checked to get to that diploma or to earn credit or to move forward in their class. There's a lot of unnecessary red tape and paperwork, a lot of compliance-based decision-making. I like that, right? But you heard it live. Stephanie gave us permission to think not only outside the box, but as if there were no box. So let's try to change this culture of compliance in this conference over the next 2 days. You have permission. So our goal will be to think about how we can change these cultures. Second, we thought maybe there's a bit of a culture of alienation, meaning that some adult learning experiences in Utah lack the interpersonal connections that we want for learners, right? The meaningful relationships between educators and students and between, amongst students themselves. Given the conditions of transiency and mismatched attendance and the challenges with adult ed and people at all different levels, it can be hard to create those relationships. And before I position this as a growth opportunity, I just want to acknowledge, I know you all do so much to create relationships with your learners. But what we've heard is that the environment sometimes makes this challenging, and that amazing, awesome teachers might even be reduced to like lab managers in some adult ed classrooms. So this is an opportunity to think about changing that culture, to create more robust relationships, to build that social capital with our learners and amongst our learners to propel them forward and reduce this culture of alienation. And third, I heard from some there might be a culture of irrelevancy. The things that are being learned in the classroom might not map back or apply to the learner's lived experience. right? And in the inverse, it's possible that the learner's lived experience isn't honored by the checklist, right, that we have to check off in order to give credit. So our thinking is that a few of the common challenges, and again, I want to acknowledge that there are many, many more, but if we can think about these three cultures, when we stop and think, culture is something that we all shape. It's not a policy that the legislature sets, it's something within our control. And so if we anchor ourselves on the potential of change over the next 2 days, our hope is that we can start to shift these three cultures. So how do we do that? How do we shift culture? Well, I'm really excited. We've got a framework for that in Utah. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Michael to tell you a little bit more.
And I'm also going to try and restrain all of my puns that I have about the word shift. So just let your mind run with that for a second and pretend that I told them. So we're lucky here in Utah because this shift, it's not really something new. It's been happening for several years now. It goes back about 7 or 8 years ago when the Utah State Board of Education started to ponder this question. One of our board members said, what are the requirements to graduate from K-12 public education in Utah? And they were thinking about, like, how many math classes do you need? How many science courses or credits in language arts or reading? But as we started to sort of like dig into this question, we realized maybe that's not the question we really want to ask, clarification about graduation requirements. But instead, we realized the question is really what people wanted to know isn't what do students need to learn, but who do we want our students to become when they graduate? And that changes the thinking. Graduation is no longer a finish line. It's now a launch pad to something else. So as we tried to figure this out, some stakeholder input meetings were put together. Maybe some of you participated in this because I know adult education was involved, but it started with these online focus groups first. Then there was the CBE, which stands for Competency-Based Education. And Brittany and I have a contest to see who can take the best picture of each other presenting, so pay no attention to that if you see it. But competency-based education is now known as PCBL, Personalized Competency-Based Learning. The agency was involved. If you look through here, I'm not going to read them all off, but you start to see that it goes from education to then stakeholder groups from legislators, government, small business, parent organizations, student organizations, everybody in the state and all over the state was pulled in for these meetings. And we came up with some very similar words out of these focus groups. And if you look at this cloud, you can see, skills, hard work, learning, good, thinking, mindset. You don't see math or science, language arts, or even the word reading. Is the word reading up there? I probably should have checked for that. But what you're seeing are these qualities of what we want our graduates to possess. We then grouped these into some main ideas. And this was where the real hard work began. Like we looked at what were skills, what were work ethics. You see the C's in there: communication, critical thinking, complex problem solving, hard worker, confidence, direction. All of these characteristics that go into lifelong learning. And from these main ideas, we then created the MAP, Utah's Talent Map, which stands for Mastery, Autonomy, and Purpose. All of those skills fit into one of these three categories. And what a perfect acronym when we're talking about the journey of our lifelong learners. So let's take a look at the map real quick. And I want you to sort of, and by the way, anybody who has never seen this before? Oh, okay, that's most of you. I should ask the question the other way around, shouldn't I? Asset-based. In the first area in blue, you're going to see the mastery. These are the things that we can teach in school, right? We have content and curriculum and textbooks and all the materials to teach academic mastery. We also have content for wellness, civic, financial, and digital literacy, and economic literacy. Gosh, I wish I'd learned those things in high school. I wouldn't have signed up for so many credit cards in college, right? The mistakes we made. But these are the things we can teach. And of these four things, which ones do we actually test in our public K-12 system? Just one, academic mastery. We don't have RISE test scores for wellness or civic, financial, and economic literacy, even though we have curriculum for it. So we can't measure those things. So that's your mastery. Then down there in yellow are the autonomy skills. These are your 4 C's, right? Communication, critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation, collaboration and teamwork. These are things that, think to yourself, do you teach these explicitly in your classes? Do you have curriculum about these 4 C's? Or are these skills that you teach through the curriculum and use your academic mastery as the vehicle to deliver opportunities for students to develop and demonstrate these skills? And then over in the 3rd section in green is purpose. Now I should pause here for a second. What do you think educators were most focused on? The blue section, right? What do you think small business and business leaders were focused on? Down here in the yellow, saying, we don't care if you give us graduates who've had 2 or 3 years of math. We care that they can take a job, knowing that job will change, and be able to demonstrate these skills and learn as they go and evolve with the job. And then what do you think parents and families were most interested in? That's the green section, thank you. This is where purpose comes into play. Respect, service, lifelong learning, hard work and resilience, honesty, integrity, and responsibility. This is what parents tell us and families that they want their children to demonstrate when they finish in our school program. But then when you ask somebody, hey, you're going to be moving to this new neighborhood, how do you pick out where you want to buy a house? What do they look at? Test scores. So there's a lot of shifts going on here. That wasn't a joke. So we took the map and we created Utah's Portrait of a Graduate. And this is where I have to stop and point out what's in bold there. These are the ideal characteristics, but look at that second bolded section. These are aspirations that are not necessarily meant to be quantified and measured. There are no test scores for this. But these are all skills that begin at home and then are cultivated in our educational settings. And I will tell you, as the parent of 4 children, 22 and 21, this is where everybody gasps. I have a 22-year-old and a 21-year-old. I also have a 3-year-old and an 11-month-old. There's the gasp. Okay. I can prepare them at home with skills like respect and understanding not a whole lot of diversity because there's just 2 kids in the house right now and they look exactly alike. But I can't prepare them for these skills when they get into a school where they're in a room with 30 people that might look different or have different religions or have different cultures than them. So I understand that these are skills that I start as a parent, but I can't do it all by myself, and I have to do with the school in conjunction. And when we look at this Portrait of a Graduate, this isn't anything new. You guys have already been working on this in adult ed with the Workforce Innovations Opportunity Act. Did I say that correctly? What's the acronym? WIO? WIO. That's where I was afraid I'd mess up. WIO is the Wyoming one, right? So you guys have already been integrating all of these mastery and autonomy and purpose skills into that act right there. So here's the shift. From a culture of compliance, we're moving more towards autonomy. Compliance is the bad C word. We're not looking for students who are compliant, we're looking for students who are autonomous. Culture of alienation. Instead, we're trying to build relationships between teachers and students. And this culture of irrelevancy, we're now providing students with purpose. This is a completely different type of teaching than we've been used to in K-12 for the last 20 years. This is totally the antithesis of No Child Left Behind. We are now moving to not teaching to the test or focusing on the curriculum, but we are focusing on the child, the learner, the person. So how do we do that? Well, first we should go in the right direction of slides. What button am I pushing wrong? Yeah, did I just go backwards a whole bunch? How's that? This is our framework. Thank you, lifelong learner. This is our framework for how we're going to change that approach to teaching and learning. We call it the Personalized Competency-Based Learning Framework, and it is made up of 5 components that I'm going to break down for you today, and then we're going to expand on as you start to do your work with your teams, looking at the content and the projects that you're creating. So let me define for you what PCBL is as far as USBE is concerned. It's educators engaging all students with high expectations for shared learning goals. So at the core, at the heart of PCBL is equitable access, providing learning for all students and high expectations. It's also empowering each learner to take ownership of not only their learning, but their strengths, needs, and their interests, while tailoring flexible supports to maximize student growth and competence. That's the definition. It's pretty wordy. I'll summarize it for you in layman's terms. And this is what I tell parents when they ask, what's this PCBL thing? I explain that for the last 20 years, we have been sending teachers home exhausted and students home bored. And it's time to flip that. I'm not saying that teachers should be bored. But the students are the ones who should be doing the heavy lifting and doing the work, because that's where they learn. That's what PCBL is all about. We also get a lot of pushback about PCBL, and that's because there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there, probably because it's an acronym. It's really easy to attack acronyms. So let me explain what PCBL is not. It is not one more thing. When educators say, we have so much on our plate, now you're giving us PCBL, we're not putting something new on their plate. We're giving them a bigger plate, and we're asking them, what do they need to take off of their plate? What is not working? It's one thing to put supports in place, and it's another to remove barriers, which is what we're trying to do with PCBL. Second, it's not a shiny new thing. Everything you see in PCBL, I think you're going to have little triggers go off and go, oh, I've been doing that, or I've always wanted to do that. This is not a new approach to teaching and learning. This, if anything, is a return to an older approach. We'll talk a little bit about how similar this is to Eastern philosophies, and even if we go way back in time, the Jedi approach to teaching. Don't worry, I'll get there. This is a quote from somebody, I won't say her name, but it rhymes with Superintendent Dixon. But she said, a major tectonic shift that will completely overhaul education as we know it. And that quote kind of scares me, right? So yes, it is going to be a big change, but it's not going to happen overnight. It took us 20 years of No Child Left Behind to get where we are right now. It's going to take us that long or longer to reverse the effects. So a major tectonic shift, we might look back 20 years from now and say, look at all the changes we've made. It's also not a fad of the 2020s, and it's not something that we're going to just abandon once the pandemic is over. If anything, this is an opportunity for us to take control of the change and not have the change imposed on us by something like a pandemic. And look at what we did during the pandemic and say, hey, this worked, let's keep it, and this didn't. Let's get rid of it. Let's not go back to normal. Let's create a brand new normal. And the last thing I'll say is it's not students sitting in front of a computer moving through a math program at their own pace. You will see this because it is very easy for a software company to take the letters PCBL and stamp it on their software box. And it's also very easy for teachers to say, here, go through this program. It's personalized. It's competency-based. My job is done. That tool might be one tool in your toolbox, but that is not PCBL or personalized competency-based learning, okay? So a lot of knots. Let me tell you another thing that it is. It is embedded in everything we do at the state level. It is one of our strategic goals. We have 4 of them. Early learning, safe and healthy schools, effective educators and teachers, and personalized teaching and learning. And what I mean by that being embedded in what we do is that even though you're all sitting here listening to me ramble, nobody's ever learned what PCBL is by having it told to them. You understand PCBL by experiencing it. So you as educators, when you move through your professional learning, you're going to start to see things like micro-credentials, opportunities to test out of a course. I mean, do you like taking a 1 or 3 credit course on a content you already know? Absolutely not. So you're going to see opportunities to move through at a faster pace, your own pace, and to take control of your own learning. You're also going to see opportunities to practice what you're learning in your profession, because that's where professional learning should happen. So not an extra 3 or 5 hours of working on a project, but demonstrate your competency in your teaching and learning in your daily activities. So PCBL right there, one of our strategic goals. And if we break down that goal, you'll see exactly what I was just talking about. Building capacity of school personnel to advance PCBL practices, to create structures and supports that empower each student to leverage their assets, and that's moving towards Portrait of a Graduate. and to utilize multiple points of evidence in learning in actionable ways. So I was walking around listening to you talk about some of the things that aren't working for students. A common theme I saw was work comes first for students. So what we're proposing here is if you have multiple points of evidence for students to demonstrate learning, could that happen at work? Could learning and work be part of the same thing? 4C, utilizing. And then 4D, partnering with technical colleges, higher ed, and workforce services to align PCBL. And part of this comes from things like transcripts. Parents and students are concerned about competency-based learning and grading because they think, oh no, there goes traditional grades. How's my child going to get a scholarship or qualify for sports or anything like that? We're working with higher ed to accept different forms of transcripts, like the mastery transcript and portfolios. So this is a cohesive, collaborative effort between K-12 as well as higher ed, and hopefully adult ed after this conference. Stephanie's nodding. Good. A couple minutes ago I mentioned Jedis. PCBL is a lot like Star Wars. I'm not going to ask if there's anybody in here that hasn't seen Star Wars, because that always makes people angry. So take a deep breath if you haven't seen Star Wars. I'm not going to out you, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent. But PCBL is a lot like Star Wars. Not just in the Jedi teaching philosophy. Remember, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I see a nodding. And when the student is not ready, or the student is competent, the teacher disappears. Remember Ben Kenobi says to Qui-Gon Jinn, where you been? I've been here the whole time. You just weren't ready for me. But I digress. What Star Wars and PCBL really have in common isn't any of the content, but how we consume it. If you're as old as me and you saw Star Wars when it came out on May 25th in 1977, these are the skills that you needed to go see the movie. First, you probably heard about it. Maybe a TV commercial, but most likely another person talking about it. Then, if you were interested in seeing the movie, you had to go look in a newspaper, find the showtimes, and go see that movie at that place at that particular time. You had to buy tickets, maybe with cash, at a window, and talk to a person. I know, right? Shocking. If you liked the movie, you had to sit there for 2+ hours and hold it, not go to the bathroom, because you might miss something like the cantina scene. After the movie is over, you might go to a bookstore and buy the novelization. It was about $2, paperback. Or some comics. Marvel put out comics back then in the 70s about Star Wars. You could find them at the 7-Eleven. And if you were really into Star Wars, the only other place you could get some more content was listening to NPR, because they used to do this like live on the radio reading of the movie script. You had to sit there and imagine what was happening based on seeing the movie before, right? Now let's compare that to Star Wars today. A little different. Those are your skills in 1977. Here they are on today. Is this the right date? Let me get the right date. September 29, 2022. First of all, you heard about it. Maybe you were at an adult ed learning conference and some guy kept talking about Star Wars. And you're like, what is that? So you went home and you got the Disney Plus subscription service. It's great, by the way, especially if you have small kids. You can also look on YouTube or maybe find some podcasts and listen and learn about Star Wars. You might then be able to binge all the movies. This is amazing. You don't have to wait 3 or 5 or 16 years between episodes or trilogies, but you could watch them back to back and then watch the spin-offs. You like the Kenobi character? Watch the 6 episodes about him. By the way, anybody here watching Andor, the first 4? Let's talk later. It's really good, isn't it? It's so awesome. You can then join an online forum and connect with other Star Wars fans. You could continue to binge watch other episodes, other videos, other cartoons, all of it's out there. And then, if you really want to learn more about something, you could go look up something on Wikipedia.com and really go down the rabbit hole. This happened to me. I got a book, it's called Shadow of the Sith. They mention a character, Tor Santika or something like that, and I was like, who's that? So I went to Wikipedia, looked it up, found out that's the Max von Sydow character from Force Awakens, went back, watched about 20 minutes of that movie, then read some more. An hour and a half went by of me on my phone learning about Star Wars when I wasn't reading. What a totally different set of skills to consume Star Wars it is today than it was in 1977. These are mastery, autonomy, and purpose skills. In the past, it was just logistic skills. Okay, so these are the components of PCBL. If you have your phone and you want to scan this QR code, you can get access to this PDF, and since somebody at the Board of Ed has a brother-in-law or something that owns a paper company, what you'll find is when you open this document, you'll have to scroll through about 6 or 7 completely useless pages to then get to this awesome page, which I think is page 12, where we break down the 5 components. And we're going to unpack these. I hate that phrase. We're going to talk more about these here in just a second as we go through it. But as you look at some of these buzzwords like culture of learning and learner agency, demonstrated competency and assessment, customized supports, and social and emotional learning, what stands out to you that you're already doing? Does anything come to mind where you're like, oh yeah, I got that? Okay. You'll also find this, by the way, if you just Google Utah PCBL framework. It'll probably be the first thing that came up. What do you think? Did I give them enough time to find it? Isn't it also in the workbook? It's in the workbook. Okay, good. I talked too much about that. Darn, wrong button. Okay, so here we go. First component, culture of learning. You'll find this page as you scroll down, and at the top, you're going to see that there's a clear definition of what the culture of learning is. Every component has this page in there, by the way. Underneath of the definition are evidence-based practices for both the student and the teacher. So if you're wondering, like, PCBL, what does it look like? I hate to disappoint you. What it looks like is teachers working with students learning content in a classroom. But what it feels like is something completely different. And that's what you'll notice as you go through here. Underneath of the evidence-based practices, which do have their effect size, by the way, it's all research-based, you'll then find the strategies. In culture of learning, pretty simple. At the state level, it's our portrait of a graduate. That's our culture of learning. We are teaching students to be lifelong learners so that when they finish our schooling, they can succeed and lead. That's our culture. In each school, it might have a little bit more unique culture. Like in Washington County, you'll see a school that has their charter process, is what they call it. We encourage you to have a culture of learning specific to your community. And then underneath of that, at the very bottom, families. We know that all of these characteristics begin at home. So what can parents and families do to help collaborate with school staff, to communicate with their students about their learning? So that's what you're going to find for each component. You can read about it, or I can break them down for you and show you some pictures of what it actually looks like in schools. So let's dive into the first one, culture of learning. This is where each learner is supported by the community, committed to creating the culture, structure, policies, and instructional practices that engage them in their journey towards college, career, and life readiness. This is basically the language that you use, the belief system that you share, and it's all about incorporating high expectations, teacher clarity, and fostering meaningful relationships. This is where we can focus on the child and the learner and the relationship there, rather than just the content and the curriculum and the work. And this is an inclusive environment that allows each child or learner to define their pathway to success. As I said, each school, classroom, or maybe even district can have their own unique culture of learning. In the JUAB school district, they call it Portrait of a Graduate, they call it Portrait of a WASP. That's their mascot at the high school, and they've defined it this way. Kind of simplified it a little bit. 13 characteristics, like in our Portrait of a Graduate, by the way, is a lot. Iron has also simplified it. They call it their Essential 8, and they've mapped them out here, and they all align with not only Portrait of a Graduate, but also the Personalized Competency-Based Learning Framework. That culture of learning, as I said, can be in the classroom. There's your charter process for how a teacher goes through and identifies standards and skills, something you're going to be doing today and tomorrow, and then comes up with formative and student self-assessments. On the right is an example from the Launch High School in Cedar City, which is a magnet-type program that focuses on student innovation, and they have the 3 I's: inspiration, ideation, and implementation. So there is a culture at the state, at the district, and then even in your own classroom. The next one, learner agency, we're going to focus on tomorrow morning as well. And this connects directly to the autonomy skills and dispositions you saw in Portrait of a Graduate. And this is where each learner develops understanding, skill, and responsibility to the learning, design, and process in pursuit of achieving the characteristics of a Portrait of a Graduate. It's achieved through a broad range of instructional strategies, including goal setting, choice and learning, pathways, voice and how to demonstrate competency, and learner self-assessment. The big three words that people use to summarize learner agency are voice, choice, and ownership. But they're not all equal. Giving your students voice and choice is what will then lead to ownership. And when students have ownership of their learning, that autonomy, that breeds accountability. So we're not talking about just allowing students to choose what the curriculum is, but how they're going to demonstrate their knowledge and their understanding. That way, when a child or a learner walks up to you and says, "Hey, Mr. H, this project really stinks. I don't like it," you can say, "Well, why did you decide to do this one?" It's on them, right? This is what I mean about putting the work on the students, having them own it. Demonstrated competency and assessment. This is what the big work is about here today. How do we define success? And it's when students can apply their knowledge, essential skills, and disposition through these processes. It's about feedback instead of grades. And it's about giving them a variety of assessments that they can choose from based on their learning styles. And having them be part of the process to measure their growth and then be able to ask for support when they need it. This is where the big barrier comes into place for parents and families when they think about a competency-based grading system. And that's the wrong button again. Here's an example of a traditional grading approach. Think back to your childhood. We got two students here who both got the exact same grade in biology, an 86%, right? Not bad. A B. But the learner on the left, look what he says. "I turn in all of my homework on time, and I participate in class. But I sometimes fail the tests because I don't always feel like I understand all the material." And his grades reflect that: a 90 in classwork, a 91 in homework, 74 on quizzes, and a 68 on tests aren't too good, but 100% participation. This is a good student, right? This is a student who knows how to play the game of education. And when you have a conference with this student's parents, what do they say? "Oh, he just doesn't take tests well. He's not a good test taker." We've heard that before. Then we look at the learner on the right. She also got an 86%. She can do Punnett squares. I'm 50 years old. I don't understand these things. Do you guys know what Punnett squares are? Yeah, I don't either. But you can figure out like whether your kid's going to have green eyes or blue eyes or brown eyes or whatever. She can do that, and she can also explain the difference between viruses and bacteria. But she often forgets her homework, and she's really quiet in school. And her grades reflect this as well. She's got, what does that say? A 97% on classwork, but only a 20% on homework. That's absolutely horrible, right? 91 on quizzes, 93 on tests, and a 10% in participation. Now try to imagine what these students' lives might be like at home. Why is she getting those grades and he getting those? Maybe he goes home, has his own bedroom, his parents gave him a MacBook Pro left over from their company, they make sure he does his homework, they give him time to work on homework, they give him support, they might even take him to a tutor. She goes home, mom and dad aren't there, because it's just mom, she has a second job. And her little brother and sister need to be fed dinner, so she makes dinner for them. And by the time she's finished taking care of her kids, she's too tired to do her homework, but yet she goes to school and does really well because she's got the science skills, right? If we were to shift those grades to feedback, we could then paint a richer, more accurate, and actionable picture for her and her families, for both students. And so what I'm proposing isn't that we get rid of the 86%, but we do the 86% and this. We're not measuring things by classwork and homework and tests and quizzes, but by subject matter and skills, pathology and genetics, punctuality, curiosity, and collaboration. Now, both students have the same grade, but they have a much better vision of what to do next and what to work on. Too often we let the data define the students. Here's an example of that, and I stole this from somebody else's presentation, I just can't remember who. But try to figure this out. Who am I talking about here? Male, born in 1948, raised in the United Kingdom, married twice, lives in a castle, wealthy and famous. The king, right? King Charles. You're right. That's him. All of those characteristics, or that data, not characteristics, but that data defines King Charles. But it's also a good definition of Ozzy Osbourne. Born the same year, raised in England, married twice, lives in a castle, wealthy and famous. So here's what I'm saying. Rather than defining a student by their grades and their data and their demographics, look at the person for the problems and the challenges that they face and how they handle them, and who they have become. So that's what the focus of this conference is when you're looking at demonstrated competency assessment. How can you measure student success and create projects that allow students to demonstrate that success? 2 more and then I'll turn it over. Customized supports. So we have students who are taking ownership of their learning, they're becoming autonomous, they're demonstrating competency in different ways, but now they need help and they have to ask for it. So we want to make sure every child or learner is provided with or selects appropriate and timely support to achieve growth and competency. Not only do we have to be able to provide these supports, but we have to empower the students to know how to understand what they are and ask for them. Some examples of customized supports that you have already put in place in adult education services: transportation, childcare, support overcoming barriers, and flexible time to engage. What other things need to be done? What other supports, but also what type of barriers need to be removed? And an Alpine adult education program, here's an example of their chart of the concepts on a required pretest. They're identifying what concepts are missing, and then before the student leaves, they provide intervention and instruction. So again, focus on feedback and having the student understand where they are rather than just grades. Not looking at the finish line, but looking at the journey. And the last component, which is probably the most important one, social and emotional learning. A lot of research has been done for the last hundreds of years that all say pretty much the same thing. When a student feels well, a student does well. It's that simple. We need to make sure that our schools reflect that, and that we're giving students the ability to acquire and effectively apply these knowledge, attitude, and skills necessary to understand and manage their emotions, to set positive goals, to feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, make responsible decisions, and most importantly, going back to the last one, self-advocate. All of these components are intertwined and depend on each other. There's no one that's perfect to start with, and there's nothing that you can leave out. They all are pieces of the puzzle that fit together. So our question then, which will come up in just a second, but if you have questions about PCBL or need more information on personalized competency-based learning, our framework, or the grant, this keeps cutting out, or the grant, you can contact me. My email is up here, as well as I believe in the, is it in the handout? We'll find out. If you Google Utah Personalized Competency-Based Learning, our webpage comes up, it's on there as well. I'd love to hear from you. I'm also always looking for examples of where these PCBL components are being put into play so that we can have site visits and what we call innovation zones for other educators to come and see what it looks like and feels like in the classroom. Please let me know. So here's my question for you. How are you already personalizing your teaching and learning? Questions 2 and 3 are on page 4 of your workbook. And we're going to give you a couple seconds to work on that. And I'll hand it over to Brittany. Thanks, guys. Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
And just as you're getting your thinking started, while you're in your workbook, the last page of the workbook is a key contacts and next steps note catcher for you. So if you'd like to jot down Michael's email address, this is a perfect way to practice building that muscle. So as you meet and connect with others at the conference, you can capture their contact info and continue the conversation after our time. So flip to the back of the workbook and add Michael's email if you'd like. And then second step, reflect on questions 2 and 3 on page 4. And once you're done writing, share out as a small group table. I'm gonna walk around and listen to your feedback. And we're back. Thank you all for reflecting and sharing. I recognize that the personalized competency-based framework might be a new acronym to you, but my hope is in that conversation you are able to start to make connections that validates what Michael said, that this isn't something new. This connects to what you're already doing and hopefully will open the door to do things that you've always hoped you could do. I know it's a big group and this might be ambitious, but is there anyone or is there a table that might feel comfortable sharing out a practice that you already do and love that you see has a connection to the personalized competency-based framework? 10,000 points, hand up in the back. I love it. Yes, sir, what are you doing?
We're a part of the American Job Center for Utah. With that, we'll get a comment. We just got kicked out. By the time we're done talking to them, their parents go to the pissed off that they got a transfer for the GD, and we handed them off to a visual rehabilitation if they have special needs, and we handed them off to our Viola route. So because we're co-located, and we've worked with them for 5 years, we have that ability. I got kiddos that come to me, and we're able to just fill in potholes on that freeway of knowledge and get them right out to where they're going.
All right, this is going to be a pop quiz for me. I'm going to try to make connections between that incredible story and the personalized competency-based framework. So it sounds like you've got folks coming in with all the big feelings, right? But you leverage demonstrated competency and assessment ideology to quickly spot the what did you say? The potholes on their learning freeway. I love that. I'm stealing that. That's good. To quickly identify them, and then you've connected them with customized supports to help the learner overcome those potholes and keep on learning. I love it. So demonstrated competency and assessment and customized supports. When those two weave together, magic really happens. Anyone else feel safe sharing a story or a reflection of a practice you're already doing that you really love and want to continue? Yes, ma'am.
I teach adult ESL at the upper levels, and a lot of my students are pretty good conversationally, so I start by asking my students why they're here and what they want to learn, and then I can tailor lessons either for the whole class, or sometimes I'll schedule a one-on-one, because maybe they just need to fill out a job application, and then I'll just do one-on-one with one person, or maybe it's a lesson for the whole class.
Were you all able to hear her, or do I need to do a tellback? Okay, I'm gonna totally misrepresent your story, so correct me in real time. She is an adult ESL teacher, so helping those learn English as a second language, and many are highly proficient when they enter her classroom, so she often starts with, what are your interests? What are you into? Deeply building relationships and getting to know the human, the learner in front of her, and then she uses that information to personalize the learning experience by creating conversation topics that are related, or even performance tasks, like just accelerating them through, skipping some of the grammar worksheets, getting right to building the resume. Did I get close? Close enough, plus or minus. So yeah, let's see the pop quiz. How does that connect to the personalized competency-based learning framework? My take is that you're pouring the foundation for some learner agency, because if you know and the learner knows what their strengths, interests, and needs are, then suddenly you both can work together as co-designers to personalize the learning experience. I also think it really speaks to the culture of learning. You have created a safe environment where learners feel seen, they feel honored as the individuals that they are, and they see the connections between the learning experiences and who they are as a learner. So beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. You have time for more. Anybody else want to feel the love? Yes, sir.
One of the things that we do to address the purpose part of MAP,
one of the things we do to address that purpose part of MAP is Laura, our college career counselor, introduced us to the interest profiler at My Next Move. We have students do that, get some feedback on careers that they may have never even heard of. But I also use several books that directly relate to Myers-Briggs temperament. And I'll have students go to like 16personalities.com, take the test, come back, and I'll print out chapters from different books like Do What You Are and so forth to also introduce them to the awareness that their personality type and their design can be matched up to a career that they could be truly passionate about. And that has seemed to have a high level of influence on how quickly they graduate once they realize why they're getting the diploma. And it's just fun watching someone from one background realize the other backgrounds they could be working in. So we try to affect that purpose part of the diploma.
Incredible. You might not believe this, but I did not pay those people beforehand to share those stories. That was perfect. Thank you all for sharing. Let's actually do a little group project. With that last story, tapping into the strengths of the students, tapping into their potential career pathways, how does that connect to the personalized competency-based learning framework? Now, I know you're new. This is a very new concept, so no expectation that we get the answer right. But do you feel that that connects with learner agency, culture of learning, customized supports, demonstrated competency and assessment, and/or social and emotional learning? Any theories? You think I'll get back on stage. There are no wrong answers here. Anyone want to take a wild guess?
Can we see the options?
Yes, oh, absolutely. Let me do a little visual support. Is this text too small in the puzzle pieces? Yeah, too small. All right, let me flip back.
It's on the little.
Oh, it is. Good point. Good call out. Jessica Hercules saves the day. If you look at the little card that was handed out, the 5 components are there for you. Yeah, we've got a visual aid here. Now that you're looking, any thoughts on how this amazing story that we heard connects to the personalized competency-based learning framework? All right, it's early on day 1. We haven't got the culture of learning there yet. By the end of the conference, we'll be there. I'll tell you my best guess. I think this example is the perfect intersection of a culture of learning and social and emotional learning. Because you are not only developing the skills, right, the language skills, the job training skills, the workforce skills, but you've also developed a little bit of self-discovery. You're helping the learner know who they are, what their strengths are, what their interests might be, and that's a social and emotional learning opportunity. We've also created the culture of learning where those things actually impact the learning experience. So again, I think it's a really interesting intersection point of 2 components of the personalized competency-based learning framework. That little thought exercise was not meant to be a quiz for you. They're new components, right? Of course, take our time to get to know them. But instead, I hope that this shows the authenticity. When we say that PCBL is not something new, it is putting a name on the great things that you are already doing. And hopefully, once we have a shared language, it can be the mechanism that we use to shift those 3 cultures that we identified at the beginning of our session today. But I recognize that you all have been sitting for a really long time. And so let's stand up for just a moment, and I challenge you at your table to create a secret handshake with someone. Just stand up and make a secret handshake, and we'll be right back.
I'm a terrible table mate. I will at least stand up.
All right, final call for rehearsals. Last 30 seconds, practice those secret handshakes. 30 seconds. All right, it is time for performances. Is there a duo, a trio, a quad? Is there a group who just feels that their handshake is revolutionary, it's innovative, and they want to share it with the whole group? If so, stand up. Stand up if you'd like to share your secret handshake. Did you see how quickly the viewer team sat down? All right, we've got a volunteer. So I'm going to draw your attention right up to the front. Let's check out this secret, which will soon become not so secret, handshake.
Okay, this is we don't even touch. Okay. This is pandemic handshake. Yeah. Okay, just
I've been informed we're witnessing the pandemic secret handshake. One more time. Sorry, as you go to sit down.
We have to explain it. Okay. So we are from Canyon Heights. Okay. So she has the C, and then I bring my H. Canyon Heights.
I love it. They make their logo. It's great. Nice job. Who else? Anyone else want to stand up and stretch? Share their handshake? As oh, yes, we got another volunteer. All right, what do we got?
This is the active one. Okay.
All right, this side of the room. What you got? Anybody want to volunteer? No one is standing. I don't know about you, but as a former educator, I love the show Abbott Elementary. If you've seen it, that was the inspiration for this secret handshake. The main character and her boyfriend at the time have an epic secret handshake. And if you need a brain break during this conference, strongly recommend that you check out their secret handshake. But hopefully this little body movement break was just what you needed to get us through the last hour or so before lunch. So with that, you grab the clicker. Prior to our secret handshakes, we heard from Michael about the personalized competency-based learning framework. We just made some connections, and so I'd like to ask you, what might happen if we intentionally leverage a few new, or maybe not so new, personalized competency-based learning strategies? Could that be the secret to shifting the cultures that we talked about at the beginning this morning? That actually brings us to the goals of our conference. Why are we here? Why are we all together? What do you hope to leave with? Well, as organizers of the conference, we had two outcomes that we hoped for you all. First, we're hoping to focus on demonstrated competency and assessment, one of the 5 elements of the personalized competency-based framework. And our hope is that we can leave tomorrow afternoon having defined the threshold for demonstrating mastery or competency for the essential standards in Utah. It's a lofty goal, but it's one that we've set for the conference. The second is that you all feel as though you're prepared and ready to mix and remix learning experiences for your learners based on their strengths, their interests, and their needs, using the thresholds for demonstration of competency. So that's what we hope you leave with tomorrow. But what do you want to leave with tomorrow? What's important for you to get out of the next 2 days of learning so you know you've invested this time well? I'm going to invite you one more time to return to your workbook. This time will be question number 4 on page 4 of your workbook. Just take a moment to jot down your goals and then share out with your table. You know, after a small group chat, I'm going to invite you to share out. So you heard our conference goals. What are yours? If you'd like to share, just put your hand up in the air. like to share their conference goal? Chatter, which is great. I certainly don't want to interrupt, but alas, due to the timing of the conference, I'm going to have to interrupt. Would anybody like to share their personal conference goal? What do you hope to leave with at the end of the day tomorrow? Yes, sir. A little louder for the deaf lady in the front. More skills and resources. Amazing. Perfect. How about, can I add an extra? How about some connections to people in the room that you can continue the creativity after the conference? Yeah, amazing. What else? Yes, sir. Oh, so a cross-pollination of great ideas from all the folks in the space. Yeah, I love that. It's a great goal, getting inspiration from the expertise that is in the room. I love it. Amazing. Yes, ma'am.
I like the fact that you can reflect on what's working for you and what's not working for you, or what you could improve on.
I didn't ask for that compliment, but I'm going to take it. That was amazing. I don't know if you could hear her, but she was reflecting on how PCBL is designed to help empower you to reflect on what works well for you and your learners and what doesn't work well for you and your learners, and allow you and your learners to act on that. How many times can I say you and your learners in one sentence? Thank you. Yeah, that's excellent feedback. That's the purpose of personalized competency-based learning, right? You should experience it too as an educator. Any other goals? Yes, sir.
Just generally to create even more of a student-centered class than I already have.
I love it. Create a more learner or student-centered class than he already has. That's an awesome goal. I love that. I think there was one more right up here.
I want to be able to help the students get to the goal that they have, the reason that they're there. So instead of, I'm really good at presenting the lesson well and making an enjoyable class, but is that getting them to the place they want to go? I want to help them articulate it, all of us articulate it, so that while we're in the class, everyone knows where everyone's going and we're working towards that.
Those in the back, do you need a repeat? Or could you hear her? You got it. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing out. Yeah, bringing students' goals into this. Imagine what that does for engagement and motivation and completion. Yeah, I love these goals. Thank you all for sharing with me. One logistical detail, jot down your goal. There's all this research that shows when we state an intention, when we write it down, we're that much closer to getting it done. So jot it down in your workbook. And then how are you going to get to that intention? I'm actually going to redirect you to the back of your workbook. There are 2 tables on the last page that include next steps. So inevitably, you're going to get inspired with a new idea, but because the conference is a bustling place, we're going to be moving on, and your brain might, bounce right along with us. So capture your ideas, your next steps, and your key contacts on this page, so that when you leave, I don't know about you, but when I leave a conference, I have almost a conference coma. My brain is full, I'm exhausted, and then Monday morning rolls around and I'm like, I don't remember any of those ideas that I had last week. Hopefully this will prevent that, so you can leave with a clear set of next steps and contacts to keep this work moving forward. All right, enough of the logistics. We'll take a break from the workbook for just a moment, and instead I'm actually going to invite you to read for some inspiration. So I know the QR code was a little finicky earlier. You're welcome to try it again, but if the QR code doesn't work, I'm actually going to project the text on the next slide as well. But I want you to take 2 minutes or so just to read this story about Joe. It's a very brief case study. I want you to read the story about Joe, and then as a table, I want you to discuss 2 questions. What would happen if we could give credit or somehow honor in school, the experiences that Joe had outside of school, and which standards or learning outcomes or competencies might we be able to check off or mark as competent based on this story. So I'm going to give you a few moments to read. I'm also going to give you a few more seconds to scan before I flip to the slide. So it'll be quiet in here for about 2 minutes while folks read, and then I'd love for you to discuss again as small groups. Thank you all so much. I'm going to do that awkward thing where I interrupt your amazing conversation one more time. All right. As I walked around the room and had the privilege of hearing tables grapple with this story, I know, it's awful. You're right in the middle of a meaningful, deep conversation, and I cut you off. As I wandered around and I heard snippets of your conversations, the most common question that I heard was like, yeah, how? How do we do this? How do we make this possible? Not one single table that I chatted with was opposed to this idea, but everyone seemed curious about how we do it. What are the structures? What are the systems? What does the day-to-day look like to make sure that Joe is getting credit? A table over here was talking about a student who has landscaping experience, and it's like, how do we know what his learning experiences are? And I'm so excited that that was the question that bubbled up, because that is what we hope to get the beginnings of a conversation started in this conference. So we're gonna buckle up for just a moment, snuggle up next to the flyer, and do a fireside chat, which is really just my fancy name for a little bit of direct instruction, a little bit of story time. But we're gonna take an imaginary walk into the future. Let's suppose after this 2 days together, working, producing, collaborating, we arrive in this new future world. And let's even give ourselves, let's go a couple years down the line. What could this work look like in your classrooms? I'm gonna grab the clicker so I can do my meandering. Imagine a world where we can start with our lesson plans. We start with the learners in front of us instead of the standards that are next in the scope and sequence. But we think about the learners that are in front of us. We then identify the learning objectives, the standards, the competencies that they need, right, to fill the potholes on their highway to learning. I'm telling you, I'm gonna steal that phrase. And then as educators, we mix and remix learning experiences designed around those learners to hit those outcomes. So this is flipping the paradigm a little bit. When I was a classroom educator, I absolutely thought about my kids, of course. But first and foremost, I was like, well, what's next in Unit 1? I thought about my content first. So hopefully this allows us to start designing for people instead of for content, which is something adult ed has been doing for a really long time. So my hope is that this work actually allows you to do this work more efficiently and more quickly. So let's imagine a world where we start with learners. I'm going to give you a hypothetical scenario. My 3 students, we ask ourselves, who are we designing for? Who are we creating a learning experience for? What are their strengths? What are their opportunities? What are their needs? Who are they as learners? And for me, I've identified these 3 learners, Braxton, Stafford, and Holland. And I know that all 3 of them have work experience outside of school, and they all have strong reading and writing skills. So as I'm going into my planning of this learning experience, I'm thinking about the people. Whoops, that was an unnecessary automation. Wow, and it's just gonna keep on going. We're stuck in a loop, y'all. Okay, here we go. Whew. Next, now that I'm thinking about Braxton and Holland and Stafford, who I know are these rich, deep people with complex scenarios, but I'm keeping top of mind that they have work experience outside of school and they have strong written and listening skills. I think about, where are their opportunities for academic growth? What are the skills that I still want to build with them to fill their potholes in their highway of learning? And so I go to my tracker Now, this is just a proof of concept. It's just a spreadsheet that I put together. But Stephanie's team is working on building at the state level a tracker like this, where for every learner and every standard, you will be able to see a heat map of where they are and where they aren't. And so I noticed with Braxton and Stafford and Holland that they've got some shared, wow, I have shaky hands. They've got some shared needs, both in writing, in a persuasive writing standard, and also in general finance, in a budgeting standard. I noticed they have some common needs. So now I'm thinking about these kiddos, or these adult learners, I should say, Braxton, Holland, and Stafford, who have some common academic needs. From there, I start to imagine, what should the learning experience look like? And this is where I activate the results of the conference. I go to the templates that hopefully we will create as a group over the next few days to explore the possibilities of those two standards. So each template represents a standard for a Utah State learning outcome. On those templates, I can see a variety of ways that a learner could demonstrate competency. And that's the conversation that was taking place at this table back here. It's like, well, for this math standard, how do we know what counts? What is good enough to show mastery or show competency? And those are the conversations we're going to spark in this conference. So I go and I check out, for persuasive writing, I see I could do a persuasive essay, I could write an op-ed letter, or I could have them write a sales pitch, a deck of slides. Okay, it's ruminating in my mind. In addition, for the personal finance section, I could have them create a personal budget, a professional budget, or a hypothetical budget. A power play at this moment of the planning experience would be to engage Braxton, Holland, and Stafford. Can you imagine if we pulled those three of them together and we're like, hey, I know you've got work experience. These are the outcomes that we need to demonstrate competency on. How could you do this? And invite them to be part of that conversation. I want to acknowledge that not every educator is ready for that, and that is okay. It is a spectrum, but this is an opportunity. If you are ready to be more learner-centered and build that learner agency and autonomy, this would be an avenue to do it. But it's also totally okay for you as an educator to do this as the professional that you are, right? Both pathways are totally fine. And at that point, you start to say, okay, I'm going to create this learning experience where Braxton, Holland, and Stafford will create a presentation or a letter to their boss creating a recommendation. There's some flexibility here, maybe a new vendor, a new product, or even a proposed cost savings. So they're going to be using those persuasive writing skills to create a presentation, and they're also going to use the budgeting skills in order to demonstrate competency in both. And I start to think, well, what are the learning experiences that they need to get there, right? And this is where you're pulling already from your vast lesson plan documents that you've been using for years. You are pulling projects that you've already done. This isn't about creating necessarily new projects. But we're starting with people, we're pulling the projects together, and then we think, okay, I'm going to pull in a couple edgenuity lessons so that they see the elements, perhaps, of a persuasive argument. I might bring I said edgenuity lessons on budget analysis, apologies. I might give them some examples of persuasive writing. Essays or decks or whatever it is that they'll produce, and then I might do a small group check-in with them to get feedback from each other and from me. I realize that standing in front of you talking through lesson planning is very elementary. You all do this in your sleep and you do it well. The purpose of this slide is to actually show you that hopefully we're not changing your process that much. Instead, we're just trying to get to the place, where we start with learners rather than content. And we want to empower you with those templates to very quickly make that pivot. So let me pause in this imaginary scenario a few years down the line. How would that approach? Starting with learners, thinking about the skills that they need, perhaps not necessarily just going in the standard scope and sequence, but taking the approach that you all have been for years, which is filling the potholes on the highway to learning. How is that more personalized and competency-based? And again, there are those 5 elements. If you flip through your
I swear, you put it on Do Not Disturb. Sorry.
It kind like the Emmys where the music started playing and I'm supposed to exit stage left. So as we were doing some tech troubleshooting, apparently Stephanie got a call. That was the music. Thankfully it wasn't Emmys. Alas, though, if you would consider this question, the story that I just told you, the vision that I have just laid out, how is that more personalized and competency-based? And this is just continuing that exercise that we started earlier. If in your workbook, you'll flip towards the back, you'll see a bingo board. It's a black and white page, it's just a bunch of squares. It's towards the back. Yep, you found it. All right, if you have found it, just show a neighbor. Help everybody find it. I apologize, I don't remember what page number that was. 14, thank you. Get those. Perfect. All right, so, oh no, my brain is going to switch to French and I'm like, tournez à la page 14. No, turn to page 14. So if you all feel free to use this as a cheat sheet. Along the top, you'll see the 5 different components of personalized competency-based learning. So reflect with your table. How would this small shift to planning for people rather than planning for scope and sequence or content, how might that open up and model personalized competency-based learning strategies in your classroom? Sure, some small group discussion. It'll give us some time to do some tech troubleshooting. We'll come right back together. All right, I'm going to bring us back together once again. You can sense the energy in the room with this prompt. I was so humbled as I walked around the room and I heard a ton of conversations asking again, how? I heard people talking about pulling data out of Utopia to move towards this system or towards this vision. I heard people talking about how they've done it or how they've heard a friend doing it. I didn't hear a lot of, I can't do that. I'm blocked. I didn't hear it, but it really might be on your mind, right? At this point, this is when the no, I can't do that moment could bubble up. And I want to honor that, right? It's normal to have those feelings. But we've got some brilliance in the room today. And so rather than me answering those questions, there are some common challenges, right? There are the challenges of, I don't have enough time to plan this way. I have too many standards. There's too many standards to get through. I get overwhelmed. How would I possibly do that on a per student or per group level? And I also have too many students. I can't do that. I can't think about just 3 at a time. And as I reflected on those 3 but I can'ts from educators, which by the way, these 3 came from real life interviews with adult education educators, I had this aha moment of, whoa, the same 3 cultures that are plaguing our learners, our adult learners, are also potentially plaguing our adult educators, right? Not having enough time means you're too busy doing the things you have to do, right? The compliance things, that you don't have time to do this really important work. Let's change that. I have too many standards. Maybe some of them aren't that relevant, right? Like, why do we have to teach this anyway? And I have too many students could create that culture of alienation. It's too hard to create those connections and personalized pathways with each of them. So that aha moment for me was like, if we shift this culture, not only do the learners feel better, but so do the educators. And how often are we the ones that get forgotten in education initiatives? So my hope is that this change, if we can overcome these but what abouts, we will begin to actually shift the culture for you and for your learners. But I want to tap the collective brilliance of this room. How can we do that? How can we overcome these 3 challenges? So I'm actually going to invite us to ideate together. And we're going to use Nearpod because 300 people in one Google Doc would just be bananas. So I'd like for you to consider opening up, and you can come up to the front if you want to scan the QR code, or you can type in the shortened URL. Just keep in mind that it is case sensitive. So be sure that Utah Adult Ed 9/29, today's date, is all lowercase. Join me in this Nearpod, and there are 3 questions there. How can we overcome the culture of compliance, not enough time, too many standards, and too many students? I'll give you a moment, feel free to talk with your friends as you prepare your answers, and we'll bring these boards to life. All right, let's do a temperature check. Have you had enough time to respond if you want to all 3 prompts? No one is saying no. So, okay, all right, let's take a look. Let's see what my behind mouse navigational skills are like today. Okay, I can't find the mouse. Okay, there we go. And there we go. Maybe. All right. Whew. We have a lot of solutions. Look at all the ways that we can solve these challenges. Oh, I'm so inspired. There is no way I can possibly read all of these. But these are here for you. So, during the next 2 days, I challenge you to return to these boards as you need when you feel, but I can't, I have too many students, I don't have enough time, because those feelings are going to bubble up, right? It's part of change. When they do, remember, everybody in this room is going to feel those feelings, and we brainstormed how to work through and push through those problems.
Brittany, can I share my favorite part?
Please.
About this? I'm going to talk really loud, okay? In the back, can you hear me? It's okay? All right. I wanted to show off how loud I can make my voice. But, all right. The thing that is my favorite part is that you guys are responding and adding to. The yes ands is awesome. So as you're going back to these boards too, someone's probably having the thoughts you're having. And I think that this really adds a lot of enrichment to the discussions too. And so you can go to this board. The first board has a lot of comments. I was looking at the next 2 boards, probably because you're focused on this first one. It's a little thinner. So you click the little arrow on the side here, and that will take you to the other 2 boards that reveal the other 2 concerns. So yeah, Brittany's doing so good. There you go. So this will open up the next board. So same thing. I'd like that you add to the comments that you're seeing from your colleagues in that way. So there's 3 boards. That's 3 arrow clicks. Or I guess 2 arrow clicks. 1, 2. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Yes, please realize that these boards are a resource for you, not only to collaborate, but also to help you get through those inevitable feelings of resistance as we try something new together. So, speaking of trying something new, what exactly are we going to be doing? Oh, well, I figured you might be asking that. Let me pop over back into the slides and give you a little bit of an overview. There we go. All right, Michael said this earlier, and he can't remember if he thought of this quote on his own or if he stole it from someone else. So we'll just say officially unknown, but it is time to stop sending teachers home exhausted, teachers home tired, and students home bored. And remember, that's an applause-worthy quote. I agree. Thank you for the claps. But the way we do that, our hypothesis, is to change those 3 cultures that we've been talking about this morning. And the way we're going to start is by taking a baby step today in some working group, oops, wrong direction, working groups. I'm going to skip that. So, we are going to spend from 1 to 3, you'll notice it's not nearly 1, that's because we're going to eat beforehand, sustenance, to get your brains ready for a little bit of cognitive load. We're going to spend 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock in content area teams doing a work session. This is time for you to produce something collaboratively and also have conversations that are so hard to have when you're in your little island back in your own classroom. So you are going to spend from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and the goal of that 2-hour work block is to dip your toe in and begin having conversations to build the templates that hopefully will drive all of this work forward. So just to recap, what's in a template? Each essential standard will have its own template. Content area teams will focus on their content area. And the goal of the template is to document the standard, document the levels to mastery. What does it look like when you're just starting? What does it look like when you're practicing? What does it look like when you've met it? What does it look like to achieve this outcome? And then potentially the most exciting part is what are a variety of ways that a learner can demonstrate competency on this standard. Yes, ma'am.
Can you clarify the essential standards are what?
Oh, great question. I might punt that over to make sure I use Utah language. Stephanie, how about you describe the essential standards in Utah?
Well, so when we were thinking of this conference, we thought we'd actually have to identify the essential standards. So but we found out that teaching and learning at Utah State Board of Education started this work during the pandemic. So what they did was they took all the standards for a course and they pared them down to just the essential ones to focus on specifically during the pandemic, right? So that work was already done. But really, when we're talking about essential standards, really smart people, right, from the state looked at all the standards that are covered in a course and they pared them down to just the most important ones. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about essential standards. So when you go into your content area groups, you're not going to be looking at all of the possible standards that could be covered. We're just looking at the most important ones.
Sorry, that's not the question.
Sorry.
I'm trying to ask, the essential standards, are you talking about the core standards for adult ed, or there's like so many different standards?
Core standards.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
They're, well, depending on which work group. So if you're in like English language acquisition work groups, those are directly from the English language proficiency standards. That's what we're working with. But if you're working with content area beyond English language acquisition, then those are course, right? They're related to the content area, so they're course standards. What does a student have to know to show to demonstrate competency for that course to get credit, right? That's what we're talking about.
Can I make a clarification on that?
Yes.
I'm Jody Parker. I am in teaching and learning. So with the essential standards, yes, we did start the work during the pandemic on how to do it in a hybrid or fully remote situation for our K-12 students. However, the work that the essential standards that we have in the folders are not the same as that. These ones were for courses that we made for demonstrated competency or credit recovery. And so it wasn't like we took the most important standards. It was we took the ones that were, in order to complete the standard, you had to already know A, B, C, and D. So what would be the summary standard? In some cases, we combined and kind of rewrote or repackaged the standard. And so we took several standards and grouped them together to give you that essential standard. So it's not one standard, it's like 10 standards that we wrote as one standard. So there's less standards overall, but it's not like we're like, oh, well, standard 1, 2, 5 are important. Only 3, 4, whatever, right? That's not what we did. It wasn't like we picked the best standards, we picked the ones that in order to achieve, you have to already know what came first.
Good
Is that
clarification.
helpful?
Did you all hear that, or do I need to repeat?
I was a teacher for 10 years, so hopefully that projected well enough.
Obviously, I was not in those conversations when they were doing them, and remember that my background is finance and counseling, so anyway, thank you for the clarification.
And huge gratitude to Stephanie, because I just had deer in headlights look and was like, she'll know the answer. Thank you, Stephanie, for that. That was an excellent question, and this is the perfect time to start asking questions, but know that as you go into your content teams, there's going to be a lot more questions coming, and we have a plan for that. Give me 2 slides and I'll show you what it is. Let me just recap for you what each essential standard template is seeking to capture. Obviously, the language of the standard, defining the levels of competency, right? What does it look like when you're beginning? What does it look like when you're practicing? What does it look like when you've demonstrated competency? Some of you might already have this. So we are going to practice personalized competency-based learning, knowing that the math team might be on a different trajectory or pathway than the science team. So reuse what you already have. We're certainly not asking you to reinvent the wheel. And finally on the template, what are different ways that learners can demonstrate competency? Is it a slide deck? Is it an interpretive dance? Is it an essay? Is it a multiple choice test, right? What are the different ways? And this is where we want to think not just outside of the box, but as if there were no box. So this is where I ask you to bring your student stories into your working sessions. Think about that student that has a job outside of the classroom obviously all jobs mostly are outside of the classroom. So the student has a job in the real world. How might they bring that living, working experience in to demonstrate their competency? This will be the work of this conference. Our goal is to lead with as many essential standards templates drafted as possible. So that way you can go out and mix and remix learning experiences. But what if you're in this room and you're not a math expert or you're not an ELA expert? Your experience is valid. Your perspective is valuable. Please join these conversations. Be brave, dive in. We do not expect everybody at the table to be experts in every standard. Please feel welcome. And for those of you who are content area experts, please be inclusive, as I know you already would be. Fold those folks in. Because when we're defining, we're trying to think outside of the invisible box, right? There is no box. So don't let content expertise be a box for you all. All right, remember I promised questions would bubble up? To be honest with you, this is an experiment. We think, our hypothesis is, if we define new and alternative ways for learners to demonstrate their competency, it will help us shift those three cultures. You've never done this before. I've never done this with you before. So a lot of questions are going to bubble up. So here's my commitment to you. You're going to do a 2-hour trial run in content area teams, and you'll each have a facilitator. Facilitators are going to help us collect all of the questions that they don't know how to answer, and I will be bouncing around like a ping pong ball between the rooms trying to help unblock and address these questions. But then we're also going to come back whole group to also continue addressing these questions, because we might learn that the science team had a really innovative approach that could benefit math and ELA and all of the other content areas. So just a friendly nudge to be sure you're capturing your questions in your parking lot. Each content team will have their own space. We've got big spaces and small spaces based on the content team that you've been invited to join. I believe when you registered for this conference, you indicated a few content teams of preference. So is it the back of the badge? On the front of your badge, it will tell you which working team, content team that you are going to participate in. And this is your room assignment. So I will return to this slide in just a moment so you know what room that you'll be in. Oh, this is also in the workbook. Great, wonderful. All right, I'll return to this slide in just a moment. You may want to use your device during your content teams. These are virtual or digital templates. If you haven't already joined the Wi-Fi, you are warmly welcome to. It's also printed out on papers around the room, but you're welcome to join the Wi-Fi if you need to, and I'll come back to this slide in just a moment. But with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Nikki for a few logistical announcements, and while she's giving you that, I'll go back to the room assignments. Thank you, Brittany.
So our lunch is on its way. It's not quite here yet, so we just want you to have a few minutes to relax and chat with the people at your table. But one more time, I want to thank our sponsors, Essential Education, GED Testing Service, Atomic Jolt, TABE, ScanningPen.com, TP, Burlington English, and Reading Horizons. Can we just give them another big thank you? AEAUT would also like to express our thanks and deep felt gratitude to USBE for their tremendous support for this conference. We really appreciate it. And last but not least, there is a table out in the foyer for those of you who would like to get more involved with AEAUT. If you would like to get more involved, we would like you to sign our paper, and we're a friendly bunch, so come join the fun. Thank you, and we'll let you know as soon as the food is here.